and I hope everybody's been enjoying Topsy. I love Topsy, they are awesome. I just want to let you know that they are playing here their sweetness and loveliness and kindness. And so we're going to pass we got a salad bowl up here because I couldn't find a jar. And so if you really like music, and I hope you can generously throw a little something in the salad bowl for them, because they're awesome. I sell the writer's books, so I don't have to give them anything. So, okay. Well, I am so glad you came tonight. This is a really special night for me because these are two people I really like their stuff. Ken Fontenot, besides being one of our best customers, he's always in the store. He received an MA in German language and literature from UT Austin. He was awarded a DAAD fellowship to study in Freiburg, Germany. His novel, which he will be reading from, you will read from that one? Yeah. For Mr. Rain Drinker, is set in 1970s New Orleans. His collection of poems, All My Animals and Stars, is another one, won the Austin Book Award. His translations of contemporary poems from German have appeared widely, and if you are looking for something to do on Sunday, Ken's going to be reading some of his translations that have just appeared in the brand new hot off the press Borderlands magazine, which is back there. But that's something totally different. Ken has been compared to Jerzy Kosinski, who's one of my favorite writers, by Tom Zagall, another local author. And I really can't wait to hear Ken read, so I'll let him read. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to read for about 25 minutes, and the plan is to read 2 sections from the novel, and then I'll read a couple of poems. This is chapter 4. It's a whole chapter called An Interview with My Father in the Living Room He's Dozed Off in for 30 years. And again, this novel takes place in the late 70s in New Orleans. Some local references here to hurricanes, the one before actually, the recent. So here we go. Why did I believe everything in 1955? You were young, a fine boy. Why could my short pants have hung from a dog's tail? You were wise, intelligent, full of energy and good bones. Would you play the home movie backward again? I want to see the food at the barbecue come out of my mouth back into the fork, and the splash of the water return to itself as I rise like an angel to the diving board. Sure, just let me focus. There. I remember driving with you on a 4-hour trip to grandmother's house with mother and brother in the back seat, me in the front seat, and you driving. How did you feel when I went to sleep? I fell asleep easy. It was the hum of the car on the road. I didn't want you to sleep. I guess I wanted somebody to talk to besides the radio. At heart, I was a lonely man. Is that why I saw your head hang down as you sat in the yard, having put together 2x4s for a day's worth of building a garage, the sweat pouring from your face, mother saying to you, damn it, get your own iced tea. Is that why you have hung your head down? I have forgiven your mother. Were you ever depressed in your life? Never depressed, lonely. Were you ever sad? I was sad only once or twice. Yes, I was sad when your grandfather lost his arm to dynamite and in the fields. But after that, I got used to his teasing, poking me in the ribs with that stump of an arm that couldn't hurt a mosquito hawk. The night Hurricane Betsy came and the roof was starting to lose shingles and the windows cracked and the water began to rise and things were pretty bad. Were you afraid? No, but it was a fine hell of a time for you to fall asleep on me. I'm sorry, but what did you expect from a listless 17-year-old with a crew cut? And that's another thing. Why did you want me to wear my hair practically trimmed to the scalp? You were a former sailor's son. Your face was made for a crew cut. And you saved money, of course, cutting my hair yourself. It must have been easy. Zip, zip, and I was bald for all practical purposes. But you had a cowlick in the front and back. You were pretty cute. Then you got to be 19, wanting to wear your hair long as any hippie. And didn't I let you? I'm embarrassed, but I'm supposed to ask the questions. Okay. In most of the pictures around the house, I'm always smiling a tiny, pristine smile. Why don't I smile smug and cocky? You were never that type. When I had flat feet at 5, you took me to the chiropodist. He put on those arch supporters that were supposed to correct my flat feet, only I remember not wanting to wear them. I hated them. Then it was off to the dentist, later to straighten the teeth, and later to the dermatologist for acne. I guess I had it pretty good as a kid. Good and expensive. Did you mind? No, and I'll add that psychologists seem to think most kids make it through life okay, even in the most adverse circumstances. Of course, some grow up any way they can. Kids do all right for themselves. Your mother worried whether you'd survive. There are lots of photographs in the album. There are a few in particular I'd like to ask you about. That's a picture of your mother pouting. You know, women didn't do that in the old days when I rode the Oregon Trail and the Chisholm Trail. We cowboys wouldn't put up with that nonsense. That's pretty funny. Now, as a child in the Catholic Church, I felt that when I died, a court of divine justice would review films of my whole life and condemn me to hell for each of my sins. Did you ever think the church would do that to me? You were pretty tough on yourself. I didn't realize that, no. I can only hope that going to church gave you some structure. You once told me that as a young man you worked in a warehouse where your boss told you, I'd rather have one experienced man than 10 like you. It hurt, yes. We never had a piano. Who could have ever thought the piano had so many possibilities? That's true, but you had a clarinet and some talent. If only you'd practiced more. What happened? Practice was a chore with all the funny-eyed girls around. Besides, I wanted to be a photographer then, which you did in high school but abandoned. Back to the photo album. Is this the same cat we caught one Thanksgiving morning, dragging the turkey across the living room floor, headed for God knows where? The same. He died at the paws of a jealous cat, an honorable way for a cat to die. Here's me barefooted in the house. Why was that? Did you want your feet condemned to the prison of your socks and shoes? No, that's right. Here's a picture of you as a child. Isn't that fantastic? In sepia. You must have been about 10. What do you guess you were thinking about? Arnold Savant stood behind the camera a dry day, perhaps the moon out. At our 30th reunion of the class of 39, Mamou High School, I saw him. He had become a doctor and an alcoholic. He looked twice his age, but we were close friends as children. We both walked 2 miles to the school bus, a Model A Ford with no windows, just flaps of canvas. Arnold was afraid of thunderstorms, so when it rained hard, he shivered next to me. In the winter, the pieces of canvas would flap back and forth. In this picture, it is winter. I am thinking zéro dans la poussière, French for zero in the dust. Arnold and I and a group of boys had played marbles. The teacher had whipped Arnold for speaking Cajun French in class instead of English. We called him Petit Arnold because he was smaller than the rest. Anyway, Arnold was losing at marbles, and I took a big stick and drew a 0 in the dust. Zéro dans la poussière, everyone shouted. Arnold, bad luck Arnold, got up, brushed the dust from his pants, and sulked away. You watch the Lawrence Welk Show every Saturday night. You subscribe to National Geographic and Consumer Reports. You read the daily newspaper front to back, and your interest is in U.S. history, especially the history of warfare in the 20th century. You love Churchill's history of World War II. Why these? I was born in 1922. Everyone I know who was born about that time watches Lawrence Welk. His music says something to us, its gentleness. It's music with a quiet voice. As for Geographic, it's living history. I'm an avid consumer. I like to take my time when I buy something that will last and that will cost more money than most other things I buy, hence Consumer Reports. I lived the best years of my life during and after the Second World War and died and came back many times. That is why I love Churchill, a fitting spokesman for the grief of war. You look like you're asleep. What's wrong? I always close my eyes when I'm thinking, and also my eyelashes are straight, so people think I'm sleeping whenever they talk to me. Do you sleep well enough these days with Mother calling out in her need? The power of a tomato is surely enough to waken me. Ah, the nightmares of tomatoes. Otherwise, I've learned to sleep moments at a time. In my sleep, I could hear your mother calling. When I was young, they could throw a bucket of cold water on me, and if I was in a deep sleep, I would still not wake up. How many times do you think single women have asked around if you were married? How many times has morning lifted the darkness from your face, taken it unto itself, wakened you? Many, many times. In my life, I've seen how I've admired old men because they knew more stories than I did. The old man, my father, the old man rests in the knowledge that he has lived. Your grandfather, for instance, look at him in 1967, the year before his death. Though his mind is filled with wilderness, his thoughts amazingly come out metered as though he tames the wilderness of his thoughts. In disorder, there is order. If his house, which is his sanctuary, is in disorder, he does not worry. Sometime in good time, he will give it order again, just as spring gives order to winter. And he does not care how he looks. He lets the wind muss his hair if it wants to. He does not ask the love of his grandchildren, only that they let his hand rest for a moment on their heads. Sometimes I wish I had your ordered thoughts, your impeccable adult ego state. Though I anger sometimes, I will try not to force my thoughts on you. You have your own thoughts. But I hope I have taught you to respect the solitary things, our beds, as close to us as our shoes, as close as our lovers, maybe closer, the trees, the seasons, the night, which has seasons of its own, the lovely animals bowing in silence. Father, what have you seen today? Kent, tell me if you've seen it, how a good cigar, never mind the small death of its ashes, will always come back to life. So the protagonist of the book is a kind of a professional job hopper, and he's had many jobs. So this last part picks up toward the end where he's in need of another job, and something that happens at home gives him an idea. So it's in the first person, so the protagonist, Kent Swallow, is talking. So my platitudinous father is home. It is my deepest wish to hold a job as long as he has. I'm not kidding now, my deepest wish. Not 2 minutes after my father settled in to the rocker to watch the news, and I opened a book of poems, I heard a rat trap snap shut. My father must have heard it too, because we met on the breezeway by the washing machine. Not one rat, but 2 baby rats caught by the iron pincer were flapping around, not yet willing to die. If rats weren't so damn secretive, if they didn't plot against us in their dark corners, perhaps we could be friends. Actually, I have no other deep feelings about rats. I wanted to talk about the land I lived on in East Gentilly, a virgin marshland until a bulldozer leveled it to a pig farm in 1946, a land Andrew Jackson may have set foot on in 1815. But let this message suffice. In America, sometimes we have to look at our words twice. They don't always look like they're spelled right the first time. Really. Catching rats at home gave me an idea. I didn't have the guts to be a salesman because I couldn't believe enough in anything I had to sell. Selling encyclopedias had been awful. In fact, when salesmen come to my door, I am not rude verbally. I just lower my eyes, not to make initial contact, and gently close the door. I believe in preparing for some ethical speech a politician gives, but I take no stock whatsoever in buying the crap they fill salesmen's minds with these days. So now I narrowed all my job possibilities to being a human scarecrow. I take care of unusual kinds of pests. I ran an ad in the paper last week, and so far I've gotten 3 replies. The ad said, "I'll get rid of anything you got but don't want. Call the human scarecrow at 381-0001. Last Monday night, I got a hate call from someone threatening to file a class action suit against me for my reducing the pigeon population. This man also said if I didn't stop my pigeon pogrom on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Simpson shipbuilding yards on the Mississippi, he would shoot flat the tires of my car. I quickly had my phone number changed to an unlisted number and told my father not to say Swallow residence anymore every time he answered the phone. It was no big deal, actually. My distant uncle, a German chemist, invented a kind of very sticky glue, which, if a pigeon landed on it, would keep it from flying away. He'd be stuck forever. If I put the glue all around the shipyard on Tuesday morning, by nightfall I could have glued down so many pigeons you could hear the sound of wings flapping desperately for miles around. I thought it was being humane. Instead of letting them flap themselves to death, I would go up to each one personally, like a priest giving communion, and gently tap it dead with a stick. Yesterday, Monday the 25th, I got a letter from some big shot lawyer saying the case was before a judge, and he soon expected a ruling that I could not, quote, glue pigeons to death. He suggested I shoot them, naturally, and with a sportsman's sense of honor, he said shooting at them would at least give them a chance to fly away. The lawyer, it turned out, was the president of some duck hunting club. Anyway, Tuesday morning, taking the lawyer's advice, for this shipyard was paying me to kill however I chose to kill, I brought my deceased grandfather's 20-gauge shotgun to the No. 2 dock on the Mississippi River and opened fire, of course in the direction of the river, away at least from people. I did pretty well, actually. I fired just one shot which only managed to scare hundreds of pigeons away. However, I soon heard a siren and saw flashing lights. Later that night, my father got me out of jail. I was arrested for disturbing the peace and firing a weapon in a populated area. I took that to mean populated with pigeons. Later in the week, a guy named Jones, who raised German shepherds in the yard the size of a public swimming pool, contacted me through a friend to get rid of an infestation of fleas. I sprayed some chemicals of my own mixing, and the next day the neighbors on either side of Mr. Jones complained of millions of fleas in their yards. simply relocated where there were no chemicals. Could I get rid of them? The neighbors asked. I realized my incompetence and asked if they could get themselves another boy. I knew this whole insane way of making a living was becoming scandalous, but I decided to give it one more try. A farmer 50 miles away in Tangipahoa Parish had heard of me somehow. He complained of thousands of birds eating his strawberry crop. I decided to intricately time-set explosive devices in the strawberry patches to scare away the birds with noise. In vain. Not only did the explosives blow the strawberries to pieces, but neighbors from the area complained to the Justice of the Peace of possible hearing loss from excessive noise. With impending legal action on my hands, I decided to hide out in my room for a while. Fortunately, I left no one in Tangipahoa Parish with any clues as to my whereabouts, and then I would check the newspaper for some job, any job. So, and from the book of poetry, I'm just going to read one poem, and it's getting moving on in time. So this is called My Nephews in May. A few good things emerge from the TV's mouth. The rest you can have. But my nephews seem to have to watch. I want to tell them the TV is a bandit, but I settle for saying nothing. My nephews love their dog. I love just sitting as the Zen masters recommend. What's this? I'd give anything to feel like a drunk, yet without having had so much as one glass of wine. Booze only simulates freedom, while time erases it. In the old days, girls winked and waved at you from their cars. You could still walk a long ways with your uncle, and it rained less. But maybe this nostalgia has got it all wrong. Maybe objectivity should be insisted on. Today, the May air is implicitly special and mild. I expect the best from May as a teacher expects the best from her student. For May is the most diligent of months since it has spring on her side, always making what we care about, bees, flowers, grass, always the right temperature, the one we'd like to have year-round, 60-degree nights, 70-degree days. Again, my nephews are playing soldiers in the yard. For the time being, they have forgotten about TV. Childhood, after all, is meant to be excelled in by dreaming, by singing, by entering what vanishes. You've been a great audience. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.